What's up, scholars? Welcome back to another video. Today we are doing part 1 of Dressrosa because this arc is so much bigger than I thought it was going to be. So it's getting split up into at least 3 separate parts. I did this one. I read up to chapter 731. So I read through 731. So I'm on 732. That's where I'm going to start the next segment. That's kind of like a decent stopping point where one portion of the arc has ended and is leading into another portion. So that's just kind of how I'm handling it right now. The very first thing I have to say, I got bamboozled. I got bamboozled by Doflamingo. Dofi tricked me. He played me. I got toyed with. See, toyed. Ha! I got toyed with by Doflamingo in this arc because I thought he seriously resigned from being a 7 Warlords. I thought that was going to be a really cool twist. Turns out I'm the fool. Doflamingo did not quit the 7 Warlords. He fooled everybody. And we're paying the consequences for it right now. But yeah, going into Dressrosa, this arc has gone in none of the directions that I thought it would, but I'm okay with that because we're getting so much lore. And if y'all know how much I love lore, I am quite enjoying this arc. It has been quite fun to sit here and read and learn about all of this lore regarding Dressrosa, the citizens, the kingdoms surrounding, the formation of the world government and Mary Joy's, the celestial dragons, and so much more. And we get little hints of the Void Century and the Will D in this, but of course they're just gonna kind of skip over that because of course, why not? So yes, this arc has several aspects to it that I am just absolutely loving, but it has the darkness that One Piece is starting to really love leaning into, and we're here for it. I'm here for it. I'm strapped in, I'm ready. I'm ready to see what Oda's got for me. Pretty sure I'm gonna end up crying at one point. I don't know who's gonna make me cry. It's either gonna be the king, Rebecca, or someone I haven't met yet. Because Rebecca's backstory with the soldier and the soldier being her father, and then the king's backstory when he tells the account of what happened to the kingdom, how Doflamingo took over, depressing. So tragic. But let's actually get into this review. This one's gonna be a little kind of spread all over the place because there's a lot of moving figures, a lot of moving people and plots and all of this. A lot of moving pieces is what I'm trying to say. So I'm just gonna try to piece it all together, so I might focus on things a little out of order as to how they happened in the arc, but I'm gonna try my best to kind of follow through all the way. So, going to Dressrosa, we get that conversation between Law and Doflamingo about setting it up on Greenbit. That's where he's going to hand Caesar over. And Doflamingo tries to talk to Luffy because he's trying to bait Luffy. Luffy, of course, at the time just thinks it's meat. He thinks it's some, big food prize that he can win. So, he doesn't really take it seriously. And then they're on their way to Dressrosa. We get hints of the Marines about Doflamingo's potential surrender of his title as a warlord and what that can mean for the world government and for the 7 warlords and the Marines in general. And we also get the first mention of Fujitora being sent after Law and Luffy about their alliance. Doflamingo's bait to Luffy is Ace's devil fruit. I have a lot of thoughts on that. Doflamingo is quite literally dangling this in front of Luffy and in front of everybody else since he sets up this Colosseum fight for all of these people to fight for this devil fruit, even though the Colosseum fight is a pretense to get all these really strong warriors down to the toy factory to make stronger toys. As they're going to Dressrosa, a small little moment that I just thought was so funny is that Law is fully falling into the Straw Hat's antics when Sanji is talking about making breakfast and he's gonna make sandwiches and everybody's calling out what they want, and Law gets so wrapped up, he's like, oh wait, no bread on mine, I don't like bread, and then he catches himself like, what am I doing? It's the funniest thing because he is so wrapped up in what the Straw Hats are doing and how they're interacting that he doesn't even realize that he's being swept up until it's too late. It's great. I love Law's dynamic with the Straw Hats. It is so great. But after their trip to Dressrosa, everybody on board seems to want to go to Zoe, this island Zoe. That's where Law's crew is. Kinemon says that's where they were supposed to be heading before they all got separated. And Luffy's just like, yeah, let's go together. That sounds fun. So after Dressrosa, they're all wanting to head to Zoe, but they can't really get to Zoe until we deal with Doflamingo, which is turning out to be a much bigger problem than we thought it was, or than I thought it was at least. So with that in mind, they're trying to figure out how they're going to do this the best way possible, and they end up splitting into 3 groups. So you get Usopp, Robin, and Law taking Caesar to Greenbit. You get Luffy, Frankie, Zoro, and Sanji all going inland to look for the factory, and then you get Nami, Chopper, Brook, and Momo staying on the ship to guard the ship. Oh yeah, and Kinemon goes with Luffy's group. How did I forget him? I just spoke about him. But Kinemon goes with Luffy's group inland to go look for the factory because Kinemon's friend, forgot his name, but his friend was being held captive there. We get to Dressrosa, and there's this very weird dynamic. There are living and talking toys interacting normally with humans. And after learning the truth about these toys and the laws in place of Dressrosa, that just is so messed up. But we get there, and the Straw Hats don these disguises that are so ridiculous. They're so funny. But they don these disguises and try to stay hidden so that nobody finds out who they are. Luffy, of course, almost blows his cover immediately and ends up going to this random person who's being swindled at a gambling casino thing, a little spinny thing. I don't know what they're called. He goes up to this man and lets him know that he won, even though he's blind and can't see and is being swindled by these people. Ends up being Admiral, one of the new admirals, who I kind of like him. I like Fujitora. He seems like a decent fellow. Ridiculously strong and powerful. I mean, chunks meteorites at people half the time, but he seems like a decent fellow. But Luffy ends up helping him, and Fujitora sends these pirates through the ground whenever he realizes he's being swindled. And then that's when Zoro's sword gets stolen, so he goes to chase this thief, and they're all going after him. And that's when Luffy finds out about the Colosseum match for Ace's Devil Fruit, and Frankie encourages him to enter. So this is where it all starts getting very chaotic, very fast. The groups are splitting up even more. It's splintered off into even more groups. People are everywhere. They're doing a lot of different things. You have Luffy entering the Colosseum under the name of Lucy, which I think is hilarious. And so you have him entering under Lucy, and you have Frankie finding this toy soldier and befriending him, and the soldier wants to bring down Doflamingo, so Frankie's like, okay, cool, let's work together. You get Zoro ending up chasing down and getting the thief, which is actually a Tantada, one of the Tantadas. And then Sanji, who would chase Zoro, ends up running into Violet, which I actually really like Violet. Or Viola, I should say. Her name for Doflamingo's family is Violet, but Viola. Viola. Gosh, now I'm just doubting myself if I'm saying that wrong or right. But Sanji ends up coming across Viola. I'm just gonna call her Violet. Gosh dang it. Okay. Sanji comes across Violet, and of course he gets bewitched by her beauty as she's dancing, and Violet ends up seeing him, wants to escape the guards, ends up kissing Sanji, and Sanji, of course, is completely smitten with her and her actions, and she tells Sanji that there's a man that she wants him to kill, ends up having Sanji fall into a trap because she's one of the officers in Doflamingo's family. So he fell into her trap and he's getting hurt once he wakes back up. However, Sanji, being the absolute gentleman that he is, still believes that Violet was telling him the truth whenever she was telling him that there was someone that she wanted him to kill. I love this about Sanji, is the absolute faith he has in women and what they say. Even if they do trick him at times, he still has absolute faith in them. And when he says to Violet and kind of calls her out on it, saying that what she had told him was the truth, and then he says, "I will never doubt a woman's tears," and that gets to Violet. She ends up freeing him and attacking all the other people around her. She ends up freeing him, thanking him for what he was doing, and they form like this sort of bond and they start teaming up together. Violet ends up sharing with him all this crucial information about Doflamingo and his plans, and she she shows him with her little power thingies. She shows Sanji something, which I'm pretty sure I know what it is, that has him saying, "I didn't know the 7 warlords had the world government at their beck and call." I think that's just a special application to Doflamingo because of who Doflamingo is. But she tells him about Doflamingo and she's on the run, but Sanji makes her agree to meet him somewhere because he wants to get her off this island because she helped him and because he knows that she's in danger, so he wants to help her escape. They end up working together quite a bit in this arc, and I actually really like their dynamic. It's kind of cool. So Sanji's got all this going on, and that's what ends up leading him to the Sunny, is because Violet can see what's happening with her devil fruit powers, and that's why he ends up going back to the Sunny. But before that, back in the Colosseum, Lucy over here takes down the Spartan guy and almost gets disqualified, but doesn't, and tries on all this ridiculous armor, but because it's over the weight limit, he has to toss it aside. And then we meet Cavendish, or as Luffy calls him, Cabbage. I will say, when I first started One Piece, I was first recording my journey on TikTok. That's where I started, and then I moved my journey to YouTube and started doing these reviews. Whenever I first started, there were a couple of people who were commenting saying I looked exactly like Cavendish, and that I was like, I don't know who that is, and they're like, don't worry, you'll know when you find out, like you'll know when you meet the character. Do I? I don't know how I feel about being told I look like a man. I mean, Cavendish is a very pretty man, but it was a little weird because when I finally met Cavendish, I was like, oh, this is the guy they were talking about. It was kind of funny. Cavendish, however, is a hoot of a character. He is hilarious. The way he has a grudge against the supernovas and the worst generation because of their infamy and because they took the spotlight away from him is so funny. His antics are hilarious. He has a very noble heart, like the time he defends Rebecca when he's in the ring. But at the same time, as soon as the attention turns on him, they're like, ah, they all love me. I really enjoy his character. He's just a goofy man. and he's fun to be around, even though he's been trying to get at Luffy. I think they'll eventually come to an understanding, just because it's Luffy and he can persuade just about anybody to become friends with him. But yes, we get Cavendish in this whole debacle, and he's a great character. I thoroughly enjoyed him. Another side character that I have grown a little too attached to my liking, is Rebecca, this princess of the fallen kingdom that is scorned because they think her grandfather destroyed the kingdom, and because they have bad feelings towards her grandfather, they take it out on her. But she is a knight, she is a great fighter, she's a gladiator, and she takes a liking to Luffy and kind of helps him out, even though she does try to kill him at first. She tries to lure him away, but because she buys Luffy food, he thinks they're the best of friends, and even though she tries to attack him, he stops it, shuts it down, and then is like, okay, what are you doing? Why are you crying for this soldier guy? I met him. He's gonna be fine. I'm gonna root for you. You didn't kill me, so we're good friends. I love Luffy. I love Luffy. Rebecca is a great character, especially knowing her backstory. Do I get into it now, or just... I feel like I'm just going to talk about characters a lot in this arc, because it was a very character-driven arc with the bits of lore on top of it, and some of the plot threads being pulled, but mostly this was a very character-focused and character-driven arc with all of these side characters that got introduced, and all of the different types of characters, like the soldier and the Tantara people. You get, Law, teasing Law's backstory and history with Doflamingo, which I'm very interested in. You get Garp's old nemesis on Chin, and like a lot of different people, but it's very character focused. So I will be talking about characters most of this review, honestly. But Rebecca, knowing her history and her backstory with the soldier, how she lost her mother and he came bringing her mother back as they were being chased out of the palace, out of the kingdom itself, and she didn't really understand what was going on. She just knew her mother died, and the soldier comes in and starts taking care of her. He raises her, and she thinks of him like a father, when in fact it is her real father. That is her father, but because of whatever devil fruit it is that turns them into toys, she has no memory of her father. She doesn't even know that this toy, this soldier that has been taking care of her, is her father. And she wants to get the devil fruit so that she can beat Doflamingo and take him down, so that she can live together with this soldier who she regards as her only family left. And I think that is so sad. And if it weren't for where I ended on 731, I would have been rooting for Rebecca to get the fruit. But because of where 731 ended, there's somebody else I'm rooting for to get the fruit. We'll get there. Rebecca is a very easy person to cheer for, how despite all the boos and the negativity that she faces in the Colosseum and the ring, despite how many people want to see her fall and want to see her killed, she stays strong, and she's known as the undefeated woman, which I think is awesome. And she still stays strong. She fights with everything she has, and I really, really love that. But then, of course, who else is at the Colosseum? One of Blackbeard's men, because Blackbeard wants Ace's devil fruit, which where does he get the nerve? He is the last person who deserves to have that fruit. Like, Blackbeard, leave. I'm so sick of him already. I really am. I'm so sick of him. But, I mean, he's a good villain, but I'm so sick of him. You have that person. I don't know his name. I forgot it. You have him there, and Luffy ends up having a conversation with Blackbeard over the transponder snail. And gets upset, and that's why he gets even more determined to get this devil fruit, because he doesn't want it to fall in Blackbeard's hands, which obviously. And we get mention of, not in the Colosseum, but I'm looking at my notes. We also have CP0, which a different branch, the one that runs that branch, or runs the whole thing, is wandering around Dressrosa. We still don't really get much of why, but I have a feeling it has something to do with Doflamingo. That's just a little side note. There's not really enough on them to kind of go further into that, but I just wanted to make sure I mentioned it because I know that they're here. But then, also, in the Colosseum, someone I didn't really think I would see again, Bartholomew. I was ready to hate him. I was ready to hate him like I did in Jaya, and I couldn't. And it made me so mad that I didn't hate Bartholomew. But he was actually okay. Like, he was okay. And he was given a second chance by Doflamingo, so he was wanting to prove himself because he still has this loyalty to Doflamingo for some reason. So he's entering the tournament to win for Doflamingo, and he notices Luffy right off the bat through the disguise, which it's not very hard to do that, but he notices Luffy. He goes up and he talks to Luffy, and he basically says that he went to the sky. He went to Skypiea, which for someone who is such a staunch unbeliever in anything being in the sky, I was like, wow, okay, Bartholomew. And then he doesn't hold any grudge against Luffy. He's just like, yeah, no grudge, I don't hold it against you. Okay. But then after he loses, he gets a mission to kill Luffy from Doflamingo, and you can see it's kind of like almost like a confliction because as Bartholomew is fighting in his match, Luffy sees him down and Luffy cheers him on. He's saying don't lose to Bartholomew, and Bartholomew hears him, and after Bartholomew leaves the fight, him and Luffy meet up again, and he's like, you had the gall to cheer for me. And then he gets these orders to kill Luffy, and he's like kind of a little more hesitant about it because Luffy cheered for him. And I was like, what? This is not what I was expecting. This is not who I was expecting to be a potential ally, because he doesn't kill Luffy. He finds out that one of Doflamingo's top men, one of the ones that they were supposed to fight in the Colosseum if they won their blocks and whatever. I think his name starts with a D. Dellinger? Something like that. He had orders to dispose of Bartholomew because Doflamingo thought Bartholomew was worthless. Doflamingo is shaping up to be a really, really good villain. He already is, but just the layers and layers and layers that are building on top of this man is just ridiculous. He needs to just stop. But back to Bartholomew. He gets beaten only to be saved by Bartholomew, which I'm gonna get to him in a second. I'm gonna get to him, but he gets saved, and then Luffy finds them, and he's talking to Bartholomew, and Bellamy's like, oh, well, no, I'm not going to betray Doflamingo, even though he just tried to have me killed. I'm not going to betray him, but if you follow me, you can make it out of this Colosseum. Potential ally. He's a potential ally. I'm calling it. If Luffy can, like, cheer him on one more time, Bellamy's on our side. That's just how I feel at this point. But, to the next character, Bartholomew. Which, from now on, he's going to be known as Barty. That is just so much easier for me to say because for some reason, I get tongue-tied on the word Bartholomew. So Barty is an even bigger fanboy of Luffy than Boa is. And I think it is hilarious. When I first met Barty, I was so unsure I was going to like him. Because his face is a little off-putting. He's got a very weird design. So I was like, oh no, this is going to be like one of those like demented characters that we're going to have to kind of deal with as we go along. I thought he was going to end up facing Luffy and Luffy would have to fight this man-eater or something like that. When I learned that Barty is the biggest fan of Luffy, that he 110% believes Luffy is going to be king of the pirates and silences anybody who would think otherwise. One of the best side characters. One of the best side characters. And the fact that he entered this tournament to get Ace's devil fruit, to give it to Luffy. It's wild. Like, this man saw Luffy, and I think it was like Loketown or something, accepting his death, and then the lightning came and saved Luffy. So ever since then, Barty thought it was just fate that Luffy was going to be king of the pirates, and he's been following the Straw Hat's journeys. And there's even one point where he sees Zoro outside of the Colosseum with Kinemon, and he starts like crying. He's like, oh my gosh, that's Zoro. I love how even though Barty wins like his round, he's not even focused on that. As soon as he realizes that Luffy is in the Colosseum, he is so focused on getting to Luffy rather than anything else, and he ends up trying to help Luffy. And I think it's so funny that every time Luffy tries to talk to him, Barty just cannot get hold of himself and ends up either crying or like fainting, kind of passing out. It's so funny because I did not think that this scary looking character would be such a big softy and pushover for Luffy. So he was a great addition into this arc. I really liked him. He was great in the Colosseum. And his devil fruit powers are actually really cool. I really like them. But you get there's a whole lot of tournament fights, and we got a whole lot of names thrown at me in this arc with the tournament, and I remember almost none of them. There was just way too many names. I know there was like some really big warriors and some fishmen and a lot of like top tier people, or they thought were top tier people in this tournament. There was a king involved. Well, two kings really. Two kings involved. There was all these big names, and I can't remember like two of them. The tournament fights were really cool. They were really cool to see, seeing all the different people and their fighting styles, and how the tournament was like a free-for-all at first, and as it got smaller and smaller, the fights began to get a little bit better. And then we get Luffy's fights in the tournament, where he goes up against Garp's nemesis, which is this Chin guy, who faced Garp in his youth and paid for it quite dearly. The panel where Garp just like destroys his head and like jams the little thingy down into it, just a small reminder of just how powerful Garp is. Really love having those reminders because I want to know how strong Garp is. And Luffy ends up going up against this Chin guy because Chin wants vengeance for what Garp did, and Luffy ends up beating him and restores his head properly. And because of this, Chin wants to grant his army to Luffy, but Luffy's running away because at this point it's just chaos, and Cavendish has figured out who Luffy is, and he's trying to kill Luffy because Cavendish and Luffy were having just chill conversations until Chin came up and was like, "You're Garp's grandson." And Luffy was like, "How do you know my grandpa?" And Cavendish figures out who he was, and he's like, "Oh wait, no, I'm Lucy. I'm supposed to be Lucy right now," and it's just too late. So all that chaos is going, and that's when he ends up going with Rebecca and finding out all of that. But the entire tournament scenes were just chaos. Utter chaos. But fun. Fun chaos. Over on Greenbit, you get Law's group. I love their dynamic. It's so funny. The way that Usopp and Caesar were both freaking out about the fish in the sea, and Robin and Law were completely chill about it. And Law was like, "Oh, well, he'll take care of it," pointing to Usopp. And Usopp's like, "Aren't you the warlord here?" And then Usopp and Robin still take care of it. They get to Greenbit. They end up seeing a Navy ship, and they hear voices of other people, but they can't find any other people. That's when they end up getting ambushed, and Robin gets awakened to all of these little people called the Tontatas. She starts asking questions, and that's when they figure out what the Tontadas are and how they are wanting to go against Doflamingo. And then of course our boy Usoland comes up with the best story ever to get them free and to get them seen as heroes and get the Tontadas on their side. I think it's hilarious. It's so great. But then that's when Sanji's warning comes in about Doflamingo not stepping down as warlord. It's all a lie, and at 3 o'clock when they were supposed to give Caesar back, that's when it's going to be announced that it was a mistake. He's not resigning from warlords. So it's Robin, even though they're underground, she ends up warning Law just in time before Doflamingo and Fujitora show up. It's kind of sad because, I mean, I know she kind of had to because she wasn't able to go back up above ground, but she kind of dipped on Law. Like, she was just like, well, this is the situation. Bye now. It's like, poor Law. Poor Law just got left all alone. I felt really bad for him. And that is when Doflamingo shows up with Fujitora, and we figure out Doflamingo is a celestial dragon because his family is the one who went to marry Joyce, and that's the families where the descendants were celestial dragons. I knew I didn't like celestial dragons. And he still hasn't changed my mind on them. He used his power as a celestial dragon to maneuver this entire thing. And it just irritates me because it works. And he's smart. It irritates me how smart he is. He's a very clever villain. And he is doing what he can not to underestimate these Straw Hats. He's even said it. He's like, I know too many people who have been burned for underestimating them. I'm not making that same mistake. That's why he's been taking so many precautions to get them out of his way, to get them handled. Still not working in his favor though. He still underestimates them, maybe a little bit. I'm hoping. I really love this moment when Fujitora asks Law about the Straw Hats, because if the Straw Hats are, you know, like subordinate to Law pretty much, and that they're underlings to Law pretty much, then he wouldn't have to chase the Straw Hats because that would give them that protection since Law is one of the 7 warlords. But if they had an alliance, Fujitora would have to attack him and Luffy. And I love Law, even though he says it's just to buy time because he needed to buy time. He says very proudly that they have an alliance there, that him and Luffy have an equal share in this. And I really love that, because as much as Law may, you know, try to deny that Luffy and him are friends, they're definitely already friends. Law just doesn't really know it yet. But they're definitely friends, and this arc really proves it. Not just Law's declaration, but after Law gets beat up and just taken down and almost killed by Doflamingo and Luffy sees him, Luffy's just like, no, we're gonna get him back. I love that. I love the bond of friendship between them. It's great. But yeah, that's when Fujitora attacks, and I guess he has something to do with gravity is what they were talking about, but he's just bringing down meteorites. Meteors? Like, chill. Even Doflamingo, because Fujitora is blind, so he's just raining down meteorites kind of indiscriminately. And Doflamingo's like, this has got to be a bad joke because he's in range of the meteorites too. And they all, like, you know, Law and Doflamingo and Fujitora are all able to fend off these attacks. And it's crazy because while they're fighting, down below is where we get more in depth with the Tontadas and Usopp and Robin's kind of building relation with them, because Usopp saw a statue of Noland the Liar, and Noland was someone very important to the Tontadas. Usopp saw that, made up a great lie that he and Noland are descendants from one another, and they automatically hailed Usopp as a hero, which I think is really funny that Usopp lied to parallel Noland the Liar. So funny. I really love that little part. I wasn't expecting to see anything other about Noland again, so that was a nice surprise. But that's when the prep work pretty much begins for the fight. You get Frankie getting the soldier side of things. You get you get Robin and Usopp getting the Tontada side of things. The only ones who don't really know what's going on is Nami's group when they get attacked by this Picasso making devil fruit user. And it's so funny, the like different variations of art that she makes them to be. I love how Brook outsmarts her by playing into the whole art aspect, that he thinks this art is beautiful, that she needs to continue making art, that he needs to show her he needs to show her his type of art, so he needs his piano and his violin and everything back, and she does, and he outsmarts her and takes her down instantly. I love it. He's so smart, a lot smarter than I think a lot of people give him credit for, especially me. I don't give him enough credit for how smart he is. That was a great moment for Brook. But I do think the 2 laws that the soldier talks about that are in place in Dressrosa are really going to come into place in the next part of this arc, where he says that there's a kingdom-wide curfew of midnight. No one is allowed out after that point. And that toys cannot enter human houses, and humans can't enter houses of toys under any circumstances. There's a big division. Despite how well they seem to get along in public, there's still a huge division forced between them by Doflamingo. And that's when we learn that the toys are human, that they were human turned into toys. And once they're turned into a toy, their existence is pretty much erased. The soldier says it is basically the inhabitants of Dressrosa are the forgotten and the forgetters. Which is so sad that everybody's memory is wiped of this person once they're turned into a toy. So even if there is someone precious to you, the moment you're turned into a toy, it's gone. That memory is gone. But then we get more lore regarding the kingdoms, the creation of the world government, Mary Joy, and the kingdom of Dressrosa with the Rika family and the Don Quixotes. So Doflamingo starts it by saying that 20 kings from 20 kingdoms came to the center of the world and established the world government. And the kings brought their families with them to Mary Joy, and that's where the land was created. And the descendants of those creators are celestial dragons, and the Don Quixotes are one of those descendants. And I guess I say Doflamingo is a celestial dragon. He says he was one, that he's revoked that in a sense, but I think he still might play into that just a little bit. But I do like what he says here. He says, "What is blood law? What is fate? Few human beings have a past as checkered as mine." Love to know it, Doflamingo. Why don't you tell some more? Alongside Doflamingo's side of things, we also get the explanation of how the Tontadas are involved, and then the royal family when the king is down in the underworld part with all the other toys, is the Tontadas were forced into slavery by the Don Quixotes, and then when the Rika family took over, the king made an agreement with the Tontadas to have them be these fairies, that they could take what they wanted from the kingdom and the king would pass it off as a legend of fairies. So during the 800 years, because it's been like 900 years since this happened, including through the Void Century, but oh well, we don't really know what happened. Somebody's gotta know. Somebody's gotta know. Throughout the Rika family's reign, the Tontadas had peace. And once Doflamingo took back over, that peace ended, and they want to reestablish the Rika king back on the throne where they belong, because Doflamingo is just awful, essentially. And on the royal family side, Viola is a princess who made a deal with Doflamingo to spare her father, the soldier who looked after Rebecca. And if he spared her father, she would work for him, and that's how she got wrapped up into this whole business. You have Rebecca, who doesn't really remember much other than her that she's a princess, and she had her mother get killed because they had been chased around. They were chased out of the kingdom. Was raised up by a soldier who she doesn't even remember was her father. And then we get the soldier side of things, explaining how it all came to happen, what Doflamingo did, as well as the grandfather, who is still alive as well, explaining what happened, how Doflamingo came in the middle of the night, like a little thief, because he is, came in the middle of the night and basically was like, I'm here to take over my rightful place. You have to give me this amount of berries or else, pretty much. So the king was like, well, if we just pay him off, it'll be fine. Like, that's all we have to do. We'll make it up to the citizens another time. We just don't need them asking questions because it'll cause chaos, it'll cause disorder. We'll just beg them for this money so that we can get him off our backs. But that whole thing was a ploy, because as soon as the soldiers started gathering up that money, Doflamingo, with his little string fruit, because he's a little puppet master, took control over the king, who had no control over himself, as he rampaged through the city, destroying things and killing people, traumatizing and tormenting this king who had done nothing but good things for his people, traumatizing and turning the people on him. And then he ended up controlling the soldiers as well and making them do horrible things and making everybody question why their good king was turning his back on them, was killing them and rampaging through the kingdom. They couldn't understand anything, and it got so bad so quickly. It was like a descent into madness for the people and their king, that when Doflamingo showed back up and said, I'm here to save y'all, they all celebrated him as a king, and they said overnight the kingdom fell into Doflamingo's clutches. It happened that fast because of how much Doflamingo thought out his plan. That's insanity. That's crazy what he managed to pull off. And that's like, after hearing all of that and hearing what Viola went through, Robin, knowing that, oh, there's this woman who's being forced to be on the run and be someplace she doesn't want to be because she's trying to fight for her life. She saw a lot of herself, I think, in Viola, and that's why as soon as she heard the story, she's like, I can't forgive Doflamingo. I love that. I love the determination from Robin. And we get everybody going towards these flower fields. That's where the Tontatas are going with Usopp and Robin, and that's where Frankie's headed with the toy soldier, and Zoro is eventually heading there, or was trying to head there with the Tontata, but he kept getting lost, and the Tontata kept telling him how bad he was at directions, and ended up saying I can't remember exactly, the left side is the one your swords aren't attached to. You mean I can't even tell my right from my left? Yes! That part was so funny. It's like Zoro's gaining awareness of how bad he is at directions, and it was really funny. But yes, so they're all trying to get to the flower fields because they're trying to concoct a plan to attack Doflamingo today. And then Law is trying to escape from Doflamingo and Fujitora, and as he is, Dofi spots the Sunny and tries to go after them, but because Sanji knew beforehand of what was going on, he ends up attacking Doflamingo and protecting them, even though he doesn't know Doflamingo's devil powers, but then he finds out because he gets strung up in the air by Doflamingo's powers. And I love this about Sanji, but I hate it at the same time because I keep talking about it. He is so self-sacrificial that it kills me. This boy, this man needs to have an ounce of selfishness for his well-being. I'm like, Sanji, please. He's about to be like destroyed in midair, and Nami and them are screaming for him, and he's like, forget about me, go to safety, leave. leave me behind, leave me here, I'll handle this, even though he wasn't gonna handle it. He was like, I'll handle this, you leave me behind. You leave me and get to safety. He was, once again, he always is. He is so ready just to sacrifice himself for the others. And I'm just like, Sanji, baby, can we please not do this? Can we please not do this again? Luckily, Law comes in, switches out their places. He ends up fine. It's getting dark outside, I didn't realize that. Oh well, that's fine. They all get on the Sunny, they're trying to figure out a way to escape. Law is wanting them to go to Zoe. He's wanting them to just get out of here completely, because if Doflamingo gets Caesar, it's all pointless. And Sanji points out that Law's investment in Doflamingo is a little too personal, but they do it anyway, so Law stays back to handle Doflamingo and Fujitora, who is again hurling meteorites, and Sanji and them, they start sailing off. I say we get Law versus Doflamingo, but it's not, we don't really get to see much of the fight. We just see Law defeated, falling in front of the Colosseum with Doflamingo. And after that, especially after Luffy sees and everything, everybody is so down to take down Doflamingo. You get Robin saying, yeah, let's do it. Usopp was a little like unsure, but then he was like, no, you know what, let's go. You get Frankie yelling over the transponder snail to Luffy saying, oh, what does he say? I have to read it because Frankie, it's so good what he says. When he says, I don't care what you say, Luffy, I'm gonna do this. There's a deep, deep darkness beneath this fun little country. This brave and tiny army stands bold and tall against a great shadowy enemy, and I can't abandon them to defeat. Frankie, my boy! Yes! I love Frankie. That's such a great moment for him. I was like, yes, Frankie! Stand up for yourself. Stand up for what you want to do. Yes! I love it. I love that Frankie moment. And after Luffy hears that, he's like, okay, Frankie, give him your worst. And it's wraps. It's wraps. And everybody's just like, all right, let's do this. We're gonna fight. And even Nami is just like, because after Doflamingo shoots Law, and then Fujitora comes back up, and they realize there's an admiral here. Nami says that there's an important card that that Law was trying to protect, and that might have been Momo. And she says, he went through all of this to protect our cards. If we go right ahead and hand them over, his sacrifice will have been for nothing. Then Luffy says, I get your point. We'll make sure we get him back. Oh, it's all heating up. It's all heating up. But then, when I didn't think it couldn't even be more chaotic, Big Mom shows up. One of Big Mom's ships. I don't know if she's actually on the ship, but she might be. Big Mom's ship shows up by the Sunny because they want Caesar. But Caesar doesn't want them because he's scared of them. He's scared of Big Mom because I think he owes them money or something. But Big Mom is there, and then Sanji wants the smoke with Big Mom. He's like, hey, Luffy, permission to attack. And Luffy's like, yeah, go for it. I already started the fight anyways. So Sanji's gonna be fighting Big Mom, or Big Mom's crew. So things are just going up and up and up and up. It's chaotic right now. Sanji wants to go fight Big Mom, and then they're trying to go to Zoe to protect the cards like Nami was saying, so they want to get to Zoe so that Law's sacrifice wasn't in vain, so they're gonna attack Big Mom and then go to Zoe, and then you get Luffy and Frankie's group to go after Doflamingo and to destroy the factory and to get Law back. They're all ready and prepared to take down Doflamingo. But then, at the very end of 731, we get Sabo. Sabo, I was right, he was alive. Sabo's alive. He shows up, the expression Luffy makes whenever he sees Sabo is very valid. Like, if I saw a brother that I thought was dead and he just appeared in front of me, I'd make that expression too, except I'd be sobbing a lot more. Sabo's there, and he's taking Luffy's place in the tournament to get the devil fruit, and then we get Koala from Fisher Tiger's backstory. little koalas in the Revolutionary Army with Sabo, and they want to see Rob again. We get koala. The end of this part of the arc is insanity. It's crazy. And things are just starting to keep heating up. They just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm so excited to see what happens next. I'm really excited to see what Sabo is like, especially if he's part of the Revolutionary Army. I'm so excited to see him. I'm really looking forward to what he's gonna bring to the table. That's where I'm ending this part of the arc. Everything is just heating up and it's going like 100 miles an hour. And I want to see what the deal is with Law and Dofi. I want to know more of Doflamingo's past, because there's gotta be a reason he's doing this psychotic stuff. I wanna see Sabo and Luffy reunite for good. I want to see more of Barty and Bellamy joining up and being like honorary Straw Hats potentially. There's so much. I want to see the fight with the Tontatas because they're like ridiculously strong. And I want to see more of Rebecca and Viola and the King and the Grandfather King. I want to see all of that. I want to see where all of this is gonna go. But that's my review. That is my review of this portion of chapters. There's so much happening, and I'm really excited to see where we go from here. I want more Law. I want more lore, because Law did mention when he was talking to Doflamingo and talking about his trust in the Straw Hats. Law says that the D, like a will of D, will always bring a storm. That gets me excited to know if we're gonna learn more about that. I'm really excited. But yes, that's my review. Thank you so much for watching this review. It's a longer one, but I hope you enjoyed it. I will be doing the next part of Dressrosa next week along with a read with me, so be on the lookout. Or the read with me might be the week after. I forgot my own schedule. Go check out the schedule if you want to know when the read with me will be. Be looking forward to those videos. Dressrosa part 2 and 3 is going to be insane, and I cannot wait for it. So let me know your thoughts down below on this arc, what you think of the first part of this arc. And other than that, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time, scholars.